So, for anybody who's not familiar with you, why don't we start out with how you became an entrepreneur and kind of how your business has evolved over the years?
Sure. Yeah. So I initially started baking when I was in high school. I saw all the cake decorating shows on Food Network and was just
Mm,
blown away by the artistry. And I've always had a passion for art and different mediums. So that's what got me hooked, started making cakes. And after that, and after graduating high school, I attended a baking and pastry arts program and completed that, kind of rounded out my love
mm,
of baking and not just the visual side of it, but all the flavors and the textures and the taste and all that. So after that, I worked in a few local bakeries. I worked in a kind of like high-end event cake shop
mm,
as a decorator. And then I also worked in kind of a more like comfort style baking for a different restaurant. And then when my husband and I had our kiddos, it was kind of this feeling of like, I really want to be present at home. And
mm,
so made the switch to stay at home to raise our girls. But in that, like, especially in these last few years, I really just felt the pull to still invest into my career and wanted something that was flexible, so we don't have to jump through all the hoops of childcare and all
yeah.
the stressors that come with that. So it's kind of been just the last few years have been just dipping my toes into all these different areas of things I could do in the, entrepreneurial space that were flexible to what I wanted my business to be and still be able to be present and flexible and in the ways that I was hoping for. So that is what kind of started the White Whisk. I wanted to have a space where I could have this creative outlet. I could work on my baking skills. I could share resources with other people.
Mm,
So I started an Instagram, started a food blog, and was like, let's see what happens.
yeah.
So that's where I started. It's definitely a huge learning curve with like the blog side of it and all of that. And from that kind of spurred into a love of the food photography side of it, and then kind of like figuring out how to do online classes with that and turn it into something that could also bring in an income. And
Mhm,
then as my Instagram grew and my portfolio grew, I kind of started working with other companies that had reached out to create content for them. So it's kind of just been one step at a time, honestly, to figure out how to make it work in a way that works for the season of life and my husband and I's goals and what I want to do to invest into my passions as well. So that's kind of how it started. That's like a 10,000
mhm.
foot view of everything.
Yeah, I love that. And you've been doing a great job. And something that I caught that you just said that I really want to point out to everybody listening is you started your business and one just like figure out what you could do to support your season of life. And I love that because I think so often we have this thing we love to do, like food photography or graphic design. So we start a business so we can do it more. And then later we have to go back and figure out how to it can support our lives better. So I love that you started out thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment because I think sometimes it's easy to slip into having like the same expectations of myself as I did in a different season of
Yeah.
life. It's like when like pre-kids or,
Mhm.
before this. And so sometimes it's hard to have the self-awareness to be like, okay, it's a different season of life. Like, how can we
Mhm.
make it mesh and how can we make it vibe so everything has its place that it needs to?
Definitely. And I know we talked about some different milestones in your journey briefly with what you just shared there, but is there anything in particular, any life experience that has shaped what you value as a leader today and how you choose to run your business?
Honestly, I think it was just the desire for flexibility, the
Mhm,
desire to be able to have control over what I was focusing on and the creative freedom. I think
mhm,
that moment of, when we had our kids and it's just like, I really want something flexible. And there was another food blogger, I feel, because I was kind of going back and
mhm,
forth, like, do I do the cottage food bakery from home?
mhm.
And I felt like I was at a crossroads between that. And then I read a blog post by Chelsea from Chel Sweets,
Okay,
and
yeah.
she detailed out how digital content creation, and that has been so fruitful for like return on investment and so fulfilling, and
Mhm.
how that was like the best move she could have made for herself versus selling like a baked good to a consumer, because I was at a crossroads with that. So I feel like that's one of the
Mhm.
peak point or the main points in my journey, because I love baking. I love sharing
Mhm.
food with people. I love the joy that it brings people. I love when other people get to try what I make.
Mhm.
So but there's also a lot of hoops you have to jump through if you want to do it from home selling to a consumer. And with the season of life, it's like with cottage food in my area, it's like you can't be multitasking and prepping other meals. You're not supposed to
Mhm.
be running laundry. And it's like you can't have pets in the kitchen. You can't have this. So it
Mhm.
was all this stuff. And I was just like, I just don't know if this is going to be a good fit. But after reading her article, I felt super inspired by that. And I was just like, you know what? Like, let's try it. Because my husband and I have always tried to make it work where, we cover our basics with his income. So thankfully I recognize the privilege in being able to not have that pressure on me to
Mhm.
bring an income in right away. And I know that's not the case necessarily for everyone, but it did give me the freedom to just like try things and not have this pressure of just like, you got to pay the bills with this, you
Yeah.
know? So, but with that, so it kind of just, I decided to take that fork in the road of doing digital and online and recipe development and photography inside of it. And it's honestly been my favorite sphere of the foodie industry
Mhm.
yet. I'm having so much fun with it. I love the flexibility. I love the opportunity to connect with other bakers and like resource other bakers with, decorating tutorials and recipes. And so I think that's one of the main points, I think, where I really started on this direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. And my next question kind of has to do with that, but one of the things that I noticed about you when I started looking at your website, first discovered your brand, was that you teach online classes. And I thought that was
Yeah.
so cool because I don't see a lot of food bloggers doing that. Like, of course, there's like different websites where you can go take cooking classes, but I love like you have the food blog and you also are the person where like people can take classes with you. So what inspired you to start doing the classes specifically?
Yeah. So first, I am a part of a church where they do like a women's conference each
Mhm.
year. And so my husband works at the church, and so his coworkers all know that I bake. And so they reached out and were like, "Hey, would you be willing to host like this fun breakout session and teach a cookie decorating class?"
Yeah.
So that was kind of my introduction to teaching classes. It was a really fun, chill, safe
Mhm.
place to do that because everybody's so friendly and nice. So that's what kind of started. That was my first experience teaching a class, and it was so much fun. Like I loved being able to share something that brings me so much joy and like
Mhm.
share that experience with somebody else so that they can then do that and bake for their family and have a creative outlet for themselves. And so I just found it incredibly rewarding. I love interacting with people. I'm a really big people person and I love
Mhm.
talking with people. So that was my first experience teaching a class that was in person. And then I was at the Bake Fest, the online baking conference, and there was a session with an instructor who talked about how online baking classes have been huge for her business and
Mhm.
how it is incredibly beneficial because you don't have to prep everyone's ingredients. You're just prepping your own, and you have such a wide opportunity of people that can come to it because it's not just local. And so she
Yeah.
talked about how beneficial it was for her business and kind of walked through some of the steps with that. And so that really inspired me to try it out. So after that, I kind of got my butt in gear and figured
Mhm.
out how to get one going and kind of the nuts and bolts of that. But that's what inspired me initially.
Yeah, I love that, and I know you said when you taught your first class, it was pretty chill, it was a church with
Yeah.
people that you're more familiar with, but how was it preparing, like, was it hard to figure out how to teach a class, or did you kind of just go with the flow?
Yeah, it was a little tricky at first, because it's like, okay, how do I make sure everybody can see everything for the right angles? And the tech
Mhm.
side of it is kind of intimidating because,
Yeah.
even just, in Zoom meetings, sometimes it's hard because you have this barrier of, conversation and like responding that you don't have in person. So thankfully, my husband is really techie. So he was able to kind of help me with the camera angles and things like that. And another thing that was really helpful for the tech side of it was I did my first online class through Eventbrite,
Okay, yeah.
which was super helpful because I started trying it out just to set it up on my blog so people could purchase tickets through my blog, and then the class would be on Zoom and this, that, and the other. But then it was just like, it was just getting too complicated for me.
Mhm.
And so, because I was like, I want to avoid this fee and that fee. And ultimately, when it came down to it, Eventbrite made it super easy for like the setup because they take care of so much for you. They take care of like sending out emails. They have, it's like all these templates of you just fill in their information, your
Mhm.
pictures, and your event and info. And so I think just like the simplicity of going through Eventbrite helped
Mhm.
make that process a little bit easier. But so that was kind of the biggest thing I was nervous about because I was like, I know how to
Mhm.
interact with people. Like I'm comfortable with these techniques that I'm teaching, but the tech side of it. So that was some things that helped me through that initial nervousness of like the tech part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel
Yeah.
like tech is always the hurdle.
Right. Because you don't want people to have a bad experience because it's
Mhm.
like they can't see it or, they can't hear you. So, yeah, for sure.
And I love something else that you mentioned there that I never thought about, being comfortable and familiar with what you're teaching. Because I know, most of the time if we're teaching something, we're familiar, but I feel like especially with cooking, if it's a new recipe, sometimes you aren't, like you haven't done it as many times, but I'm sure
Sure.
you always test things first. Or like, how do you figure out, like, if something's trendy and you want to teach on it, do you go, like, work at it first?
Oh yeah, for sure. The classes that I've done so far, I've kind of based off of what the most interest I've gotten in
Mm-hmm.
on my blog and my Instagram. Like, so, like what have people been the most excited about? So
Well, that's a
I
great
think
point.
yeah, and also choosing something that isn't crazy advanced so it feels
Mm-hmm.
approachable because I think that really spreads out the options for people that want to attend your class because if it
Mm-hmm.
looks crazy intense and there's a place for that for sure,
Yeah.
and that might be something I do down the line, but for my first few classes I wanted to have kind of a wide net and choose something that a lot of people were interested in and was beginner friendly that I had made lots of times and was super comfortable with to
Mhm.
eliminate that piece. Because I think too, even with simple things, like people are new at it, it's like things
Yeah.
that come second nature to you, you might kind of like take for granted, but it's like this is new information to somebody else. So
Mhm.
like choosing something that's really easy for people to jump in with, I think was a good move.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about like just explaining things to people in general and how when you're the expert, you might forget things. And they gave the example of like if you're trying to explain how to make a peanut butter sandwich, and the first
Sure.
step is like put the peanut butter on the bread, but you didn't tell them to get bread or get a butter knife. So you really have
Right.
to think from your student's perspective.
Yes, definitely. There was one time because I've taught a few sugar cookie classes, and
Mhm.
over the Christmas season, my husband was organizing like a gift for his parents to come over, kind of like a fun little event night thing.
Mhm.
That event is a big word. We were like planning a fun Christmassy hangout for his parents.
Yeah.
And so he chose to do like cookie decorating. So
Mhm.
we did a little fun experiment where he made my sugar cookie recipe and I didn't say a peep. Like I just like
Mhm.
stepped back and let him try it out with the recipe that I have written out. And it was really interesting to see because there's so many things, like you said, that
Mhm.
I just do second nature and don't even think about, but it wasn't like super clear in my recipe. So he didn't know to do that. So that was a really helpful thing for me to like almost like have this little test run
Mhm.
of having somebody that's brand new to baking and doesn't have the experience to be able to try it out. So I think like that could be even a good step for somebody looking to get into online classes is if you have a friend or a family member that would be a good test subject to do it
Mhm.
with and give it a run through and see what gaps you need in your information maybe.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, like you said, anytime we can kind of step away and have someone else's eyes on it, it really helps. I do that with my website designs too. Like, I'll stare at the website for so long and I know where everything is. But the second I ask my family member, my friend to test it, I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. And so it really
Right.
helps you understand their experience. And so I'm gonna pivot a little bit, but
Okay.
in addition to your online classes, we talked about it a little bit, but you also have social media and your blog, and you have tutorials on the blog that are separate from the classes, and I thought that was really cool too because it's different from just a normal recipe post. So can you talk a little bit about that and like how you write tutorials and like what makes that different from a recipe post that other food bloggers might be familiar with?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to tutorial type posts, something that I find to be really helpful is to integrate video into the steps. Because I think,
Mhm.
especially with decorating, it's kind of hard to describe the steps sometimes of like
Yeah.
the angle that you hold things at and, the amount of pressure or swoop. I don't know. It's just like when you're trying to describe how to decorate,
Mhm.
I found that yeah, incorporating video is really helpful. So sometimes what I'll do is share links into the blog post of like snippets I've done on Instagram. So for example, like
Mhm.
I have a set of sugar cookies that I have on my blog, and for each design, I incorporated my Instagram video of one cookie design.
Mhm.
So that way I'm kind of like maximizing my content a little bit and
Mhm.
helping it work together and also making it a more clear tutorial for people. So I think
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing. I think tutorials also have a little bit more opportunity to incorporate, maybe like your affiliate links or things like that if you're doing a food blog and just
Mhm.
trying to tie things together because as a one woman show, it's like you want to maximize the work you're putting in to be able to have it span across as much as you can.
Definitely. Yeah, I love what you shared there about repurposing your videos from Instagram to the blog post because when you said video, my first thought was YouTube. But then you said, like, I already had the video on Instagram, I put it in the blog post. And especially when you're trying something new and you're already busy, having to understand how to write the tutorial and then also figuring out YouTube would be a lot. So I love the idea of just taking the videos you already have from Instagram.
Sure. And sometimes it can be kind of tricky, because it's like when you're sharing it to Instagram, you want to be able to send them to the blog.
Yeah.
But, it's like if you haven't posted all those videos yet on Instagram, sometimes that can be tricky. But sometimes what I'll do in those instances is upload to like YouTube Shorts because
Okay.
YouTube is not what I invest most of my time into. It's kind of
Sure.
like my leftovers of the things I made for Instagram.
Mhm.
So sometimes if I want to maximize like the amount of traffic coming from Instagram to a blog post, and I want
Mhm.
that blog post to be completely ready when I roll it out on Instagram, I
Mhm.
will create those videos on YouTube Shorts and link those instead because that's not where the primary traffic I'm having coming from is, but it
Mhm.
still gets video on the blog post. Something with that can really like slow down your blog page is
Mhm.
having videos uploaded to it and not just like a link to a video.
Yeah.
So that is another difference, I guess, in it's more just blog posts in general, but like linking to a video on a different site is going to slow your page down a lot less than uploading a massive video.
Yeah, really smart. I love
Thank you.
that you shared that. And I'm curious, I'm probably gonna have to research it later, but if I'm curious if there's a difference between so you can upload the video into the blog post and that would slow it down like you're saying, but there's also an embed sometimes
Mhm.
where you can embed the video from another platform, and I wonder if there's a difference with that. I don't know. That's just me being nerdy about tech
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I think because most of the time, like when I add it in, it's like add in oh man, I haven't even done it in a while. I'm trying to remember if it is because embedding is something that's like done throughout it for sure.
Mhm.
It might be that, like it might be, you click the add, whatever, and then you embed like an Instagram link and it'll
Mhm.
have that in its little box and stuff. So I think that's what it is.
Okay.
I might, I'm not 100%. It's been a while since I've done
You're
one like
fine.
that, but
Alright. And we know we just talked about social media. So how do you juggle all the things in your business with blogging and social and then teaching online classes? And then of course there's also the admin back inside of having a business.
right. Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't do it super well all the time. Sometimes it's just a matter of like looking at my chunk of time I have to work on something and like I really have to like sit down and think about my priorities in that
Mhm.
time frame, because it's easy to slip into just wanting to focus on the social media because it's kind of like the instant gratification
Yeah.
side of it. And I know that's where like a lot of my clients come from, like,
Mhm.
because they see my social media. But at the same time, something I've been trying to do more lately is, spread out my net of like what I'm investing into, because
Mhm.
social media is super draining and I don't enjoy like the pressure of feeling like you have to post all the time, this, that, and
Yeah.
the other. So I think just like reminding yourself that like long game is important too. Like not just the
Mhm.
short game instant gratification of social media, but it's like your long-term goals, like getting a digital, product class up on my site. Like that's one of my long-term goals right now. Or, investing into like the education side of it. Like I did a food photography course like last year, I think it was. I don't know.
Mhm.
But like doing that kind of stuff to like better yourself and like learn from people in your industry, like those are like long-term gains. Like you're not going to see the instant like satisfaction of like, oh, this got this many likes or this many, plays on Instagram. But so I think that's something I have to fight because I am doing all the things as like,
Mhm.
but also looking into like ways to invest into yourself to like help you grow faster. I think
Mhm.
like doing the online course was one of those things, or I don't know, just like programs that make your life easier. Like for the
Mhm.
first, I don't even know how long, I was like editing photos on my phone in Lightroom mobile.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, why did I do that for so long? When, it's like those little things that can be kind of hard to like make the jump to invest to, but it's like,
Yeah.
no, this is going to make my life so much easier and it's going to like help me grow faster. So like
Mhm.
recognizing some of those key things, because it's like, you can't do it all. And whether that's like hiring a program or like a subscription type thing, or maybe like pulling in someone like you to take care of your
Mhm.
branding and stuff like that, because we can't do it all.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of like find those areas to maximize our time. And I think other than that, it's just trying to be smart about like what things I do when. Cause like, for
Mhm.
example, I have Tuesdays. That's one of my big work days. And it's like I don't have, my kids are in school or childcare that day. So that's my day.
Mhm.
It's like I can do my deep focus. I can do my creative things that, it's like I don't want to be stopping and starting all the time because I need to go put someone down for a nap or get them a snack or whatever. So like choosing to do those things when I have the most focused time, and then maybe
Mhm.
saving kind of like the editing and the social media stuff for when I'm like zoning out on the couch during, their nap on a different day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a combination of things, but yeah, prioritizing, trying to strategically plan your time to when it makes the most sense, and pulling in help through either programs or maybe like hiring someone to do certain aspects of it. I would love to hire more people at some point.
Mhm.
We'll get there eventually, but yeah, I think those are the main things I do to like juggle it all.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you just shared, so thank you for that, and,
Yeah,
I think also when you're newer in business, you feel like it's hard to hire help or, you're trying to bootstrap everything. But like you said with the Lightroom thing, then when you do invest, it really makes your life easier. And one thing I had to learn with that is like figure out what I could let go of and, have someone else
right.
help with or get the program. And then if I couldn't and it was draining too much of my time, just, put that to the side until it made sense in my business. Sometimes that can help too.
Right. No, that's so good for sure.
And so with all that, we just talked about juggling everything, but I was curious, what's your favorite thing to do in your business?
Ooh, that's so tough. I feel like the most satisfying moment for me is like when I have like gotten to the point where I've tested a dessert, I've made it, I've taken the
Mhm,
photos and videos, and I come and I get to like look at all the photos and the videos that I
mhm,
have and like see the culmination of the hard work. I think
for sure.
um the photography side of it has been really, really fun.
Mhm,
I have really enjoyed the creative aspect of that and learning the, just ways to make your food look its best.
mhm,
So I think a combination of the food photography and I feel like the online classes is one of the most rewarding things.
Mhm,
But just as far as what I have like a lot of fun with, I would say like the food photography and the recipe development is also something I really enjoy right now. My little one gets to
mhm.
come in
Uh,
when her sisters are gone. So she likes to help me bake in the morning. So she jumps in when I'm trying to like just test recipes and
mhm.
it's not like, you know, the final product. So that's been really fun too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you can involve your kids in it too.
Yeah, I think that is one of the fun things about being in the entrepreneur space is you have the flexibility to do that. It's
Mhm,
fun to see them be, get a glimpse that it's like, mom is a person, like mom's a
mhm,
person that has interests and passions, and for them to hopefully see an example that, they are their own unique person. And, if they have families one day, it's important for them to, remember their personhood as well and invest into that. So but also, it's like pulling them in so they get to be a part of it. And like they have their little digital cameras
mhm,
sometimes. So they'll come in and take pictures of
mhm.
the food when it's all set up. And my oldest likes to pretend she's like on a YouTube channel and she'll be like,
Uh,
so here's the setting.
mhm.
It's my mom kind of made a mess, but it's okay. And
Oh my
just
gosh.
use the glasses over here and it's just really pretty. So come back next time. It's
I
really
love that. Yeah, when I was a kid, my mom had a jewelry business, and so she worked a full-time job, but she did that on the side, and it was kind of the same, she only had weekends to work on it, so sometimes if she was trying to make jewelry, she'd come and like let me string a necklace together, like do something fun on the
yeah.
side on my own, or bring me along to craft fairs, and it was really neat to get to see.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Probably so fun for you to have those memories with her too, of just like
Definitely.
bringing you in alongside of her.
For sure, it was really fun. My last question for you is kind of more of a personal note, but I think people might be able to relate to it. But I tried your chocolate macaron recipe, and it was my first time making them. But one thing that surprised me is like I'd heard for years and years, like, oh, they're so hard to make. So I was really scared. But I
Right,
think
right.
the actual steps weren't that hard, but it was learning how to do them precisely that was the hard part. So what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think it's simple ingredients, it's simple techniques, but I think it's just like learning where the stopping point is for the
Mhm.
steps, like the macronage when you're folding your dries into the meringue, like learning what it looks like and feels like, because that's not something I can, like necessarily detail out to the point where it's going to be perfect for everyone every time to do this many folds. It's kind of something you have to learn the feel of.
Mhm.
And everybody's ovens are so different too. Like
Yeah.
your oven is going to be different than my oven. My oven likes to be psycho and fluctuate like 50 degrees sometimes. So I have to learn how to, balance that out. And like climates are different. So I think, yeah, I think you nailed it. I think macarons are one of those things that are more approachable than people think, but also it's one of those things that just takes practice to figure out what it works like in your own setting, in your own kitchen.
Mhm.
I'm
That's
so honored that you tried it though. I
yeah.
thank you for taking the time to try it out.
I
I
will
hope you
tell
like
you
it.
that, I loved it, and, I mean, they definitely weren't perfect, but my family enjoyed eating them and thought they tasted really good,
Yeah.
so that
Hey,
was the
that's the
most
thing
important part.
too. Even macaron fails, like, and not that yours were a fail, but even when they don't turn out perfect, like they still taste good at least. So
Definitely, yeah.
you'll get something out of it for sure.
Yeah, I like, it really wasn't that bad, compared to what I expected, so I'll have to try again, and I love that there's
Yeah.
so many different flavors you can try.
Yes, they are so
Mm.
fun. Macarons were kind of like what I really started
Mhm.
on for like my content and things that I put out. So I love them. They're so fun. They're so cute and colorful and chic. And there's just lots of different flavor combos. And I love to, I think what initially drew me to them is the challenge of it. Cause
Mhm.
everybody's like, oh, this is one of the hardest things in baking. And I'm a competitive person. So I'm just like, I'm gonna master these. So it's been fun. But yeah.
And so my closeout question that I've been asking everybody throughout the interview series is what's the best piece of encouragement, like encouraging advice that you've ever gotten about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it was from I think it's Food Blogger Pro
Mhm.
podcast. They hit it every single episode about just getting a little bit better every day or
Yeah.
learning a little bit more every day. And I feel like that has been the most instrumental thing because it can feel very overwhelming when you're just starting something out and you're just like thinking about the mile long list of things you want to do someday or that you need to learn. And it can be overwhelming. But if you just like focus on it a little bit every day, like
Mhm.
it's going to grow and it's going to get better. And you're going to improve your skills and your knowledge of your industry that you're in. And, not being afraid to try things out and have it not work out. Because, like, something for me, I'm very much a person who wants to be really good at everything I do
Mhm.
in every area. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to like be in a place where you're like, I see these people, they're doing it this well. I'm starting
Mhm.
out and it
Yeah.
doesn't look like theirs. So being willing to let yourself be not good at something at first to get better
Mhm.
and like be able to improve and practice. And so, yeah, I think that's the most instrumental thing. Cause yeah, it's just those small things add up over time for sure.
Definitely. I love that advice. Well, Megan, thank you so much for coming for an interview. And for everybody who's excited to connect with you further, will you just let them know where they can find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me online at thewhitewhisk.com is my food blog. So that's where I share recipes and tutorials and also hoping to get some like available classes on there where you can take them at your own pace
Mhm.
soon. And also Instagram is at the.white.whisk. And I'm also on TikTok kind of, and Facebook, but primarily Instagram and my food blog, thewhitewhisk.com would be the best ways to stay in touch. And yeah, thank you so much for having me though. I think this is such a cool resource that you're putting out into the world. I'm super excited to hear the other people you have
Mhm.
on, and I love being a part of things like this. So thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right, and I'll be sure to put all your links in the show notes for the episode too.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.